The midday sun beat down mercilessly on the archaeological site, transforming the Iraqi desert into a shimmering landscape of heat and hidden secrets. Jack Harper squinted against the brightness, his weathered hands moving with practiced precision across the excavation grid. Sweat traced lines down his sun-bronzed neck, cutting through layers of dust that seemed as ancient as the ground itself. This wasn't his first dig, but something felt different about this location. The site near Uruk had been overlooked by generations of archaeologists, dismissed as nothing more than another unremarkable patch of Mesopotamian desert. Yet Jack's intuition, honed by years of military intelligence work and subsequent years of archaeological research, told him otherwise. His team worked in careful silence, each movement calculated and deliberate. Sarah Williams, the team's lead geologist, approached with a look of cautious excitement. "Jack," she called, her voice barely above a whisper, "you're going to want to see this." The object she presented was unlike anything Jack had encountered in his 20-year career. A clay tablet, seemingly untouched by the millennia that had passed, bore intricate markings that defied conventional understanding. The symbols weren't just writing. They were a complex matrix of intertwined patterns that seemed to shift and change when viewed from different angles. "Run a spectral analysis," Jack instructed, his fingers tracing the edge of the tablet. Something about the artifact felt alive, as if it were breathing with a history far more complex than any textbook could explain. The laboratory set up at their base camp was a marvel of modern technology, tucked incongruously into the ancient landscape. Portable spectrometers, high-resolution 3D scanners, and genetic sequencing equipment stood ready to unlock the secrets hidden within the artifact. Jack watched as Sarah carefully prepared a microscopic sample for analysis, her hand steady despite the excitement that vibrated through her body. "This doesn't make sense," she muttered, rechecking the initial scan results. The genetic markers embedded in the trace organic material were impossible, a combination of complexity that suggested something far beyond human understanding. Jack leaned closer, years of military intelligence training kicking in. He recognized pattern recognition when he saw it, and these genetic sequences were more than just random biological information. They were a code deliberately constructed with a precision that suggested intentional design. A notification pinged on the secure satellite phone Jack always carried. The message was encrypted, sent through a private channel known only to a select few. His former military contacts rarely reached out unless something significant was happening. The message was brief: "Verify origin. Immediate security protocol activated." Outside, the desert seemed to grow quieter. The usual sounds of the archaeological dig, the scrape of trowels, the murmur of conversation, the distant hum of equipment, suddenly felt muted. Jack's military instincts prickled. Something was washing. The genetic sequence continued to puzzle the team. Each analysis revealed new layers of complexity. What appeared to be simple organic material contained information density that rivaled the most advanced computer systems. It was as if someone, or something, had encoded a massive amount of information into the most fundamental building blocks of life. "We need to contact Dr. Olivia Rodriguez," Jack decided, pulling up her contact information. She was the world's leading expert in advanced genetic archaeology, someone who had built a reputation for challenging conventional scientific understanding. If anyone could make sense of these impossible findings, it would be her. As night fell over the excavation site, Jack sat outside his tent, studying the photographs of the tablet. The symbols seemed to move in the flickering lantern light, telling a story that humanity was not yet prepared to hear. The desert wind carried whispers of ancient secrets, of a history far more complex than anyone had ever imagined. Little did Jack know that his discovery was about to trigger a chain of events that would fundamentally reshape humanity's understanding of its own origins. The tablet was more than an archaeological find. It was a key, waiting to unlock a door to a truth that had been hidden for thousands of years. Something was watching. Something was waiting. The communication chamber hummed with an energy that defied human understanding. Holographic displays flickered with wavelengths beyond the visible spectrum, showing intricate data streams that mapped humanity's progression across millennia. The Annunaki Observation Council, a collective of genetic architects who had watched human civilization like a carefully managed experiment, convened in absolute silence. Supreme Coordinator Nexus studied the incoming data with growing concern. Jack Harper's discovery was more than a simple archaeological breakthrough. It was a potential unraveling of a plan thousands of years in the making. "The genetic lock is destabilizing," announced Keeper Variance, her voice a melodic cascade of mathematical precision. "Human cognitive potential is advancing beyond our initial suppression protocols." The chamber rippled with collective unease. Each council member represented a different phase of human genetic manipulation, from the earliest Mesopotamian interventions to the more recent technological age. They had carefully guided human development, introducing just enough innovation to maintain progress while ensuring the species remained controllable. Deep within a classified intelligence center in Washington, D.C., a different kind of monitoring was taking place. The National Security Advanced Research Division, a secretive unit that existed in the shadows of government bureaucracy, had intercepted strange electromagnetic signatures correlating with Jack Harper's archaeological site. Director Michael Reynolds reviewed the incoming reports, his fingers drumming a steady rhythm on the reinforced glass of his observation window. Something was changing, and the pattern suggested an acceleration beyond any previous projections. "Cross-reference the genetic markers with our historical archives," he instructed his lead analyst, Emily Chen. Her fingers danced across holographic interfaces, pulling together decades of classified research. "Sir," Emily said, her voice tight with suppressed excitement, "these markers match fragments we found in unexplained archaeological sites worldwide. But the complexity, it's exponentially higher than anything we've seen before." The global network of intelligence agencies began to stir. Satellite communications buzzed with encrypted messages. Research facilities that had been studying anomalous human genetic potential suddenly found their funding mysteriously increased. Something was happening, and the world's most powerful institutions were preparing. Back in Iraq, Jack Harper was unaware of the global tremors his discovery was creating. He sat with Olivia Rodriguez, reviewing the initial genetic analysis. Her expertise in quantum genetics brought a different perspective to the research. "These genetic sequences," Olivia muttered, "they're not just information. They're more like a complex algorithm, deliberately structured to remain dormant until specific conditions are met." Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden electrical surge. Equipment flickered, and for a moment, the air itself seemed to vibrate with an impossible frequency. Jack's military-trained instincts immediately went on high alert. "We're being watched," he said quietly. Thousands of miles away, in the Annunaki observation chamber, the council prepared their first direct intervention. Humanity had reached a critical point, a moment where their carefully constructed limitations could either be reinforced or completely shattered. "Diplomatic Protocol Gamma," announced Supreme Coordinator Nexus. "Prepare the first contact team." The team would appear human, a carefully constructed genetic projection designed to interact with Earth's population. Their mission was simple: assess the threat, contain the potential genetic breakthrough, and ensure humanity remained within its prescribed developmental parameters. What they didn't know was that Jack and Olivia were already several steps ahead. The genetic discovery was more than just an archaeological find. It was a key, waiting to unlock humanity's true potential. As night fell across the archaeological site, strange atmospheric conditions began to form. Electromagnetic disturbances created auroras that shouldn't have been possible at that latitude. The desert itself seemed to be holding its breath, waiting for something extraordinary to emerge. Jack looked up at the sky, a sense of anticipation building in his chest. Something fundamental was about to change, not just for him or for humanity, but for the entire cosmic order that had been carefully maintained for thousands of years. The game was about to change, and humanity was finally ready to play. The quantum genetics laboratory looked more like a fortress than a research facility. Reinforced walls, lined with advanced electromagnetic shielding, surrounded a central research hub, where Olivia Rodriguez worked with surgical precision. Banks of quantum computers hummed, processing genetic data that defied conventional understanding. Jack Harper stood behind her, his military background making him hypervigilant. "Talk to me," he said, watching Olivia's fingers dance across holographic interfaces. She didn't look up, completely absorbed in the genetic puzzle. "The sequence we discovered is unlike anything in human genetic history. It's not just a code. It's a complex, adaptive system designed to remain dormant until specific environmental triggers are activated." The genetic markers they had found were more than simple DNA. Each strand seemed to be a sophisticated information storage system, packed with potential that had been deliberately suppressed for millennia. Olivia had been working around the clock, pushing the boundaries of genetic research beyond anything previously thought possible. A secure communication terminal blinked with an incoming message. Dr. Elena Martinez, a neuroscientist from Stanford University, had been tracking similar anomalies in human brain function. Her research suggested that certain individuals were displaying unprecedented cognitive capabilities. "We're seeing spontaneous neural pathway formations," Elena's message read. "Patients are demonstrating learning capabilities that defy all previous neurological models. It's as if something is rewriting the fundamental rules of human cognitive potential." Jack felt a chill run down his spine. This was more than scientific discovery. This was a fundamental transformation of human capability. Olivia isolated a specific genetic sequence, projecting a three-dimensional holographic model that seemed to pulse with its own internal energy. "Look at this," she said, her voice a mixture of scientific excitement and underlying tension. "These genetic markers are like a complex lock. They've been waiting, dormant, for thousands of years." The laboratory's advanced quantum scanners began to register unprecedented energy fluctuations. Equipment designed to detect the most minute genetic variations started to malfunction, overwhelmed by the complexity of the information they were processing. Outside the research facility, something was changing. Reports began flooding in from around the world, seemingly unrelated incidents that formed a pattern only when viewed from a broader perspective. In Detroit, a factory worker named Michael Collins suddenly understood advanced quantum mathematics after a routine medical scan. In Rio de Janeiro, a schoolteacher named Sophia Rice discovered her body could heal from a chronic autoimmune condition in a matter of hours. In Tokyo, a software developer named Hiroshi Tanaka began experiencing moments of collective consciousness that transcended individual perception. These were not isolated incidents. They were the first signs of a global awakening. The Annunaki observation team monitoring Earth's development began to panic. Their carefully constructed genetic suppression protocols were unraveling faster than they could comprehend. Centuries of careful manipulation were being dismantled by a potential they had never anticipated. "The human genetic potential is activating," Keeper variants reported to the Council. "Our containment strategies are failing." Olivia continued her research, unaware of the cosmic implications of her work. Each genetic sequence she decoded revealed more complexity. The markers were not just information. They were a blueprint for human evolution that had been hidden in plain sight. Jack reviewed the incoming data, his military background helping him see patterns others might miss. "This isn't just a scientific discovery," he told Olivia. "This is a revolution." She nodded, her eyes never leaving the holographic genetic model. "We're not just unlocking human potential. We're rewriting the fundamental understanding of what it means to be human." As night fell, the research facility seemed to vibrate with potential. The genetic sequences continued to evolve, adapt, and reveal their secrets. Humanity stood on the precipice of a transformation that would change everything. Something was awakening, and it was far more powerful than anyone could have imagined. The United Nations headquarters in New York transformed into an unprecedented battleground of diplomacy and cosmic revelation. Holographic projections flickered across the main assembly hall, revealing beings that looked human but radiated an energy that suggested something far more complex. Jack Harper and Olivia Rodriguez stood at the center of the diplomatic storm, surrounded by world leaders and international security experts. The Annunaki delegation had arrived with an air of calculated calm. Their representative, a being who called himself Ambassador Lawrence, presenting a facade of diplomatic courtesy that barely concealed an underlying threat. "We are here to discuss the recent genetic anomalies," Ambassador Lawrence began, his voice a carefully modulated tone that seemed to resonate beyond the physical space of the room. "Humanity's current trajectory poses significant risks to its own survival." Director Michael Reynolds from the National Security Advanced Research Division leaned forward, his eyes never leaving the ambassador. "And who exactly gave you the right to determine humanity's potential?" The room fell silent. The diplomatic tension was palpable, a razor-thin line between peaceful communication and potential conflict. Olivia stepped forward, her scientific precision cutting through the diplomatic rhetoric. "The genetic markers we've discovered are not a threat. They're an opportunity, a blueprint for human evolution that has been hidden for millennia." Ambassador Lawrence's facade flickered for just a moment, a microsecond of genuine concern that most in the room would have missed, but Jack caught it. His military intelligence training had honed his ability to read the smallest tells, and this one spoke volumes. "The genetic potential you've unlocked," the ambassador said, "is far more dangerous than you understand. There are cosmic protocols, balances that must be maintained. Around the world, something extraordinary was happening. The individuals who had begun experiencing genetic awakenings were connecting, not through traditional communication, but through a form of quantum consciousness that defied previous understanding." Michael Collins in Detroit suddenly understood complex engineering problems he'd never studied. Sophia Reyes in Rio de Janeiro could now process multiple languages simultaneously. Hiroshi Tanaka in Tokyo found himself able to interface with computer systems through pure thought. Back in the UN Assembly Hall, the confrontation escalated. "You've been controlling humanity's development for thousands of years," Jack challenged, stepping closer to the Annunaki ambassador. "What gives you that right?" The holographic displays began to malfunction. Quantum interference patterns emerged, showing glimpses of alternate realities, potential human developments that had been systematically suppressed. Elena Martinez, who had been monitoring the global genetic awakening, transmitted real-time data to the assembly. "The human brain is restructuring itself," she reported. "Neural pathways are forming at rates we've never seen before. This isn't a threat. It's an evolution." Ambassador Lawrence's composure began to crack. The carefully constructed human projection started to shimmer, revealing glimpses of a form that was neither human nor completely alien. "You don't understand the cosmic balance," he warned. "Humanity was never meant to develop this quickly. There are forces beyond your comprehension that require controlled advancement." Olivia's response was immediate and calculated. "Controlled by whom? You? We're not asking for permission to evolve. We're simply removing the constraints that have been holding us back." The diplomatic meeting had transformed into something far more significant. It was no longer just a discussion about humanity's potential. It was a direct challenge to a cosmic hierarchy that had existed for millennia. Outside the UN building, strange atmospheric conditions began to form. Electromagnetic disturbances created patterns in the sky that defied scientific explanation. The very fabric of reality seemed to be responding to the confrontation happening inside. Jack looked at Olivia, a silent understanding passing between them. They were no longer just researchers or scientists. They had become the vanguard of a species about to redefine its own existence. "We're not asking for your approval," Jack said to the Annunaki ambassador. "We're telling you, humanity is taking control of its own destiny." The challenge had been issued. The cosmic chess match had begun. The first wave of global transformation began quietly, then crescendoed into a symphony of human potential. In Sao Paulo, Sophia Reyes discovered her body's healing capabilities during a routine medical examination. What should have been a complex surgical procedure became a moment of miraculous regeneration. Her damaged spinal nerve reconstructed itself before the surgeon's eyes, neural pathways rewiring with impossible speed and precision. Across the world in Tokyo, Hiroshi Tanaka experienced a cognitive awakening that defied all scientific understanding. While working on a complex software problem, he suddenly perceived the entire algorithmic structure as a living, breathing entity. Quantum computational models that would have taken months to solve became instantaneous revelations. The global communication networks began to shift. Traditional internet infrastructure struggled to contain the new forms of information exchange emerging among the transformed individuals. They weren't just communicating, they were creating the new form of collective consciousness that transcended language, culture, and physical limitations. Dr. Elena Martinez tracked the phenomenon from her research facility at Stanford University. Her neural mapping systems captured extraordinary data. The human brain was literally restructuring itself, creating connection pathways that previous scientific models had deemed impossible. It's not just genetic modification, Elena reported during an emergency global scientific conference. It's a complete evolutionary leap. Government security agencies worldwide found themselves overwhelmed. The transformed individuals weren't just changing, they were becoming something entirely new. A factory worker in Detroit could now solve complex engineering problems. A schoolteacher in Rio de Janeiro understood quantum physics with the same ease as reading a children's book. Jack Harper and Olivia Rodriguez became the unofficial coordinators of this global transformation. Their research facility became a nexus of understanding, helping those experiencing the genetic awakening to navigate their new capabilities. This isn't about superhuman abilities, Jack explained during a secure briefing. This is about unlocking the potential that's always been within human DNA. We're not becoming something different. We're becoming fully human for the first time. The Annunaki observation teams watched in growing alarm. Their carefully constructed suppression protocols were collapsing faster than they could comprehend. Centuries of genetic manipulation were unraveling in a matter of weeks. In Beijing, a young programmer named Lai Wei discovered he could interface with computer systems through pure thought. Complex security networks became transparent to him, not through hacking, but through a profound understanding that transcended traditional technological barriers. Medical facilities reported unprecedented healing rates. Chronic diseases disappeared. Neurological conditions reversed. The human body was rewriting its own fundamental operating system. Global economic structures began to shift. The transformed individuals weren't interested in traditional power dynamics. They saw solutions to problems that had seemed insurmountable: climate change, energy production, social inequality. Their expanded consciousness revealed interconnected solutions that previous human thinking had missed. Military intelligence agencies found their most advanced predictive models becoming obsolete. The transformed humans operated on a level of strategic thinking that made previous computational models look like child's play. We're witnessing the next stage of human evolution, Olivia told Jack as they reviewed the global data. But it's not about individual superiority. It's about collective potential. The transformation wasn't uniform. Some individuals experienced more dramatic changes than others. But a common thread emerged: a deeper understanding of interconnectedness, a breaking down of artificial barriers that had previously divided humanity. Strange atmospheric phenomena began to accompany the global awakening. Electromagnetic disturbances created auroras in unexpected locations. Satellite communications picked up quantum entanglement patterns that defied existing scientific understanding. The Annunaki Council convened in their hidden observation chamber, their carefully maintained composure fracturing. The human potential has exceeded all projected parameters, Supreme Coordinator Nexus reported, a hint of something almost like respect in the synthetic voice. As night fell across the globe, millions of transformed individuals looked up at the sky with a new understanding. They were no longer just observers of the universe. They were becoming active participants in a cosmic narrative far larger than anyone had previously imagined. Humanity was changing. and nothing would ever be the same again. The global coalition of awakened humans formed not through traditional political structures, but through a quantum network of consciousness that defied conventional communication methods. Jack Harper and Olivia Rodriguez found themselves at the center of a movement that was rapidly reshaping human civilization. Their first strategic meeting happened simultaneously across multiple continents and digital platforms. Participants weren't just connecting through screens, they were interfacing through a collective intelligence that transcended physical limitations. Lai Wei from Beijing demonstrated how global technological infrastructure could be reimagined. Complex computer networks that had once been controlled by governments and corporations became transparent, their underlying structures visible and malleable. Power grids, communication systems, and financial networks were no longer rigid systems, but fluid, adaptive entities. Sophia Rice led a medical revolution from her research center in Rio de Janeiro. The awakened humans weren't just healing themselves. They were developing medical technologies that could regenerate entire organ systems, reverse genetic diseases, and fundamentally transform human healthcare. "We're not fighting against the old systems," Olivia explained during a global broadcast that simultaneously translated into every known language. "We're creating something entirely new. Our potential isn't about individual superiority. It's about collective advancement." Government institutions worldwide found themselves obsolete. Traditional power structures crumbled as awakened individuals demonstrated solutions to problems that had seemed insurmountable. Climate change mitigation strategies emerged that combined advanced technological understanding with a profound ecological consciousness. Hiroshi Tanaka developed quantum computational models that could predict and prevent global conflicts with unprecedented accuracy. Economic systems were redesigned to prioritize human potential over monetary gain. Resources that had been hoarded became shared, with a level of efficiency that previous economic models could never have achieved. The Annunaki observation teams watched in growing desperation. Their carefully maintained control was disintegrating faster than they could comprehend. The human species was evolving beyond their most extreme projections, breaking through every genetic limitation they had imposed. Jack Harper's military background proved crucial in organizing the global transformation. He understood systems of power and how to dismantle them strategically. But this wasn't a traditional rebellion. It was a complete reimagining of human potential. Medical facilities worldwide reported extraordinary developments. Chronic diseases disappeared. Neurological conditions reversed. The human body was rewriting its own fundamental operating system with a speed and precision that defied previous scientific understanding. Elena Martinez documented the neurological changes. The human brain was developing connection pathways that previous scientific models had deemed impossible. Individuals could now process complex information at speeds that made previous computational systems look primitive. Global communication networks transformed. Language barriers dissolved as awakened humans developed a form of communication that transcended spoken or written words. It was a direct exchange of concepts, emotions, and understanding that made previous forms of communication seem rudimentary. The first truly global democracy emerged, not through voting systems, but through a collective decision-making process that considered the needs of every individual. Technological solutions to global challenges appeared with remarkable speed. Water scarcity, energy production, food distribution, problems that had seemed insurmountable were solved through collective intelligence. "We are not becoming something other than human," Jack told a global audience. "We are becoming fully human for the first time. Our potential was always here. We just needed to remove the limitations that were holding us back." Olivia's research facility became a global center of understanding. They helped individuals navigate their new capabilities, ensuring that the transformation was guided with compassion and collective wisdom. The Annunaki Council's final transmission revealed their ultimate fear. Humanity was no longer a controlled experiment. They had become something far more dangerous, a species with the potential to challenge cosmic hierarchies. As the transformation continued, millions of awakened individuals looked toward the future with a sense of unprecedented possibility. They were no longer just inhabitants of Earth. They were becoming architects of their own destiny. The rebellion wasn't about fighting an external enemy. It was about releasing the potential that had been suppressed for millennia. Humanity was rewriting its own story, and the universe would never be the same again. The final confrontation began not with weapons, but with a quantum consciousness that rippled across the fabric of known reality. Humanity's collective intelligence had become a force that defied traditional concepts of conflict. The Annunaki battleships descended into Earth's atmosphere, their technology so advanced it seemed to bend the very laws of physics. Massive vessels that could have obliterated entire continents hung silently above major global centers. Their arrival was a statement of absolute power, or so they believed. Jack Harper stood at the Global Command Center, a facility that was no longer a traditional military installation, but a nexus of collective human potential. Olivia Rodriguez worked beside him, her understanding of genetic potential now extending far beyond traditional scientific boundaries. "They're not here to negotiate," Jack observed, watching the holographic displays that showed the Annunaki fleet's positioning. "They're here to demonstrate their superior technology." Olivia's response was calm. "Technology is just another form of information, and information can be understood, transformed." Around the world, the awakened humans began to interface with the incoming alien technology. Lai Wei in Beijing found he could read the quantum communication signatures of the Annunaki ships as easily as one might read a children's book. Hiroshi Tanaka in Tokyo began to decode the ship's computational matrices, revealing layers of complexity that were both beautiful and terrifying. The first wave of Annunaki attack came in the form of advanced energy weapons, pulses that could theoretically dissolve matter at the molecular level. But something extraordinary happened. The targeted areas began to absorb the energy, transforming it, redirecting it. Sophia Rice led a team that discovered how to convert the destructive energy into a regenerative force. Cities that should have been obliterated instead began to rebuild themselves, the molecular structures adapting and growing with an intelligence that seemed almost alive. "We're not just defending," Elena Martinez reported from her research facility. "We're communicating. These energy attacks, they're a form of communication we're just beginning to understand." The Annunaki command ship, a massive construct that defied human understanding of engineering, suddenly found its systems becoming transparent. Quantum entanglement allowed the awakened humans to see into its very operational core. Every system, every defensive mechanism became a window into the aliens' entire technological and cultural framework. Jack watched as global communication networks transformed. It wasn't just about stopping the invasion, it was about understanding it. The collective human consciousness began to interface with the Annunaki technology, revealing layers of manipulation that stretched back thousands of years. "They've been controlling our development," Olivia explained, her voice resonating through a global communication network. "Not just genetically, but technologically. Every major human advancement was carefully managed, carefully controlled." The Annunaki fleet began to experience systemic failures, but not through traditional hacking or technological warfare. The human collective was literally rewriting the operational logic of their most advanced systems. Battleships became conduits of understanding rather than instruments of destruction. Supreme Coordinator Nexus watched in growing horror as human potential exceeded every projected model. The species they had considered a controlled experiment was now dismantling their most advanced technological defenses through pure cognitive potential. Electromagnetic disturbances created impossible patterns in the sky. Quantum communication networks that the Annunaki had used for millennia to monitor humanity suddenly became two-way channels. The monitored had become the monitors. "We're not destroying you," Jack's message transmitted across the alien communication networks. "We're inviting you to understand us." The confrontation was unlike any invasion in cosmic history. Humanity wasn't fighting. It was transforming the very concept of conflict. Defensive systems became channels of communication. Weapons became windows of understanding. As the final confrontation reached its peak, something extraordinary happened. The line between invasion and communication blurred. The Annunaki discovered they were no longer dealing with a species to be controlled, but a collective intelligence that could comprehend and transform their most advanced technologies. Olivia looked at Jack, a subtle smile crossing her face. "We're not just changing ourselves," she said. "We're changing the entire cosmic narrative." The universe watched, and everything was about to change. The aftermath of the confrontation was not a moment of triumph, but of profound transformation. Humanity stood at the threshold of a new cosmic understanding, no longer a species confined to a single planet, but a collective intelligence ready to engage with the universe. Jack Harper and Olivia Rodriguez convened a global council that was unlike any previous human gathering. Representatives weren't chosen through traditional political systems, but emerged through a collective consciousness that understood individual and collective potential with unprecedented clarity. "We're not conquering," Jack explained to the assembled global leaders and awakened individuals. "We're expanding. Our potential isn't about domination. It's about understanding." The technological leap was staggering. Systems derived from the decoded Annunaki technologies allowed humanity to perceive reality in dimensions previously unimaginable. Quantum communication networks became windows into cosmic interactions that had been hidden for millennia. Lai Wei from Beijing demonstrated the first interstellar communication protocol. What had once required massive technological infrastructure now happened through a subtle quantum entanglement that connected consciousness across unimaginable distances. Information flowed not through traditional signals, but through a form of understanding that transcended physical communication. Sophia Rice led the medical revolution. The genetic understanding gained from the confrontation allowed for complete cellular regeneration. Diseases became historical artifacts. The human body was no longer a limited biological system, but an adaptive, intelligent organism capable of continuous transformation. Elena Martinez documented the neurological evolution. The human brain had restructured itself, creating connection pathways that made previous computational models look primitive. Individuals could process complex multidimensional information with the same ease as breathing. The first wave of human explorers wasn't a military expedition. It was a collective of scientists, philosophers, artists, and thinkers who understood that exploration was about connection, not conquest. Their spacecraft were living systems that responded to collective consciousness, adapting and learning with each moment of interaction. Hiroshi Tanaka developed navigation systems that didn't just map physical space, but understood the quantum relationships between different cosmic regions. Space was no longer a vacuum to be traversed, but a living network of interconnected potential. The Annunaki Observation Council, now transformed from controllers to participants, watched in a state that approached wonder. The species they had managed for millennia had become something far beyond their most extreme projections. They are no longer an experiment, Supreme Coordinator Nexus reported to the remaining council members. They are becoming architects of cosmic potential. Global systems were redesigned. Economic models that had been based on competition were replaced by collaborative networks that understood collective advancement. Resources were no longer commodities but shared potentials. Every individual's development became a collective priority. Olivia's research facility became a global center of cosmic understanding. They weren't just studying human potential, they were mapping the intricate relationships between consciousness, technology, and universal potential. The first interstellar colonies weren't military outposts or resource extraction sites. They were living research stations, places of profound exploration where the boundaries between biological life, technological systems, and cosmic consciousness began to blur. Jack looked out at the first human settlement beyond the solar system. It wasn't a triumph of human engineering, but a testament to collective imagination. The settlement was a living system that grew and adapted, responsive to the collective consciousness of its inhabitants. "We're not just exploring space," Jack told a global audience. "We're expanding the very concept of what consciousness can be." The epilogue of human transformation was still being written. Each moment revealed new layers of potential. The species that had once been confined to a single planet now understood itself as a cosmic participant, ready to engage with the universe not as conquerors, but as students of an infinite, interconnected reality. Olivia stood beside Jack, watching the first quantum communication network establish contact with distant star systems. "We're not just changing ourselves," she said quietly. "We're changing the entire narrative of cosmic potential." The universe watched, and everything continued to change.